Are you struggling to make your first 100K or next? Are you pretending you're successful but barely getting by? Are you tired of comparing yourself to millionaires and billionaires who make it look so easy? Welcome to First 100K, the #1 entrepreneur voice in America. I talk about the important things that no one else is talking about, like how to make your first $100,000, because I believe this is where 90% of entrepreneurs get stuck. And I tackle the mental game of entrepreneurship that we all secretly struggle with but won't admit. My guests are successful entrepreneurs who share their mistakes, their #1 fears, their daily habits, and their superpowers that push them over the 100K mark. I'm your host, your coach, your friend, Joseph Warren. I'm also a 10-time failed entrepreneur and the owner of 2 co-working spaces here in Tampa, Florida. This show was created for you, the entrepreneur who's pushing to break through the elusive 100K milestone. Wherever you are in your business, you're just 100K away. Today, my featured guest is James White. He is a sales trainer and mentor. As the UK's leading prospect conversion expert, James is the founder of James White Sales Success and also has equity investments in several other businesses. James co-authored the Amazon #1 selling book called The Sales Genius, and he is the sales mentor for Shifts to Success. You may have remembered my other guest, Alexander Series, the founder of Shifts to Success. He was on this show as well as James being a sales mentor for Southwest Business Expo, B4, and a number of other groups. Now, through 20 years of sales successes and mistakes, James knows that he knows what makes people buy products and services, your products and services, and the right and wrong way to approach selling. So we're going to get into that today, and he's going to open up some of his sales strategies and tactics for you, Startup Nation, because let's be honest, you want to be closing more sales, don't you? I know you do. I want to be. So James is going to school us today. He's also a speaker, regularly delivers curated sales content to business events as part of his training programs. You can find him at JamesWhite.business. That's JamesWhite.business. He's joining us from the UK. And so it's, I think, 5 p.m. evening time for him there. It's noon around here in Tampa, Florida. And James, welcome to your first 100K. Go ahead and fill in some of the gaps in that intro, would you?
Yeah, good afternoon or good morning, or good, Joseph, and great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. So it's lots of interesting things done over a 20-year, 25-year career in selling, maybe a bit longer actually, if I think about when I first sold my first product. So, but no, it's great to support and help businesses get better results because they certainly need it in the current climate we're in.
Yeah, and I think you were just saying that earlier, how you offer some, free consultations with some businesses, very limited for a few businesses, but you really do want to help out some people that are struggling right now in these times. And I think that's awesome. So before we get into your story, go ahead and take a minute and share something personal about you that very few people in your business life actually know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so probably 2 personal things that I'd share. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 5 years. So I learned when I was Jehovah's Witness that there is the right and wrong way to sell. So maybe that's the first thing I'll say.
You did a lot of cold calling though. Come on.
Correct. Exactly. On the wrong days and on the right time. And the second thing is that I also learned, I got married and then split up with my wife, my first wife, 7 weeks later. So I also learned that sometimes making the wrong decisions can hurt you, and you have to make the right decisions and be brave to make the right decisions. So there's 2 things that are probably quite chunky, I'd say, to start off with.
I really like that you brought faith into the show here, and we were just speaking offline a little bit about that. And you posed the question to me, Joseph, how do you do that? Like, how do you have that conversation with people and bring faith and spirituality into the business space? So I think it's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And let's use Jehovah Witness for a moment. Not to pick on any denomination whatsoever, but Let's be real. Jehovah's Witness, I know half of my family, the Greek side of my family, are Jehovah's Witness to this day. So I can really speak to this conversation as well. And to be real, Jehovah's Witness is probably one of the best selling denominations out there. Like if we had to categorize denominations into who's the best at sales, I would suppose Jehovah's Witness would rank as one of the top sales experts when it comes to selling faith or religion. Would you agree or disagree?
I would definitely agree. They have great platforms. Yeah, they're good at what they do. They're good at what they do. Bear in mind, when I was a Jehovah's Witness was 25 years ago. So the religion's probably evolved a little bit since that time. But yeah, they're a strong. The key thing I think what is to me about the way they do things that makes them able to sell is that they have a position in the market, and they're able to be clear about their position. So when I talk to people about, when I was Jehovah's Witness, people used to say, "Oh, you didn't celebrate Christmas, or you didn't celebrate birthdays, or that you didn't take a blood transfusion." So there are many things that they were, very, very specific about in their positioning and what they felt. And I think that as a sense of community, they're very strong. But yeah, I mean, I went out and knocked on the doors and tried to sell the Watchtower and the Awake. So I know that's the ultimate of sales, right? So I always say to people, I share a story that I knocked on a door in the UK on Christmas morning one morning. And I was probably, I must have been 14, 15. And this lady looked at me with real disdain. It'd been on this, but she looked with pity. She looked at me, so I was really tentative, and I was like, "Would you like a copy of The Awake?" And she looked at me and she said to me, "Shouldn't you be at home opening presents?" And of course, I was, my family was not fully into the religion. So the one thing it taught me, it was a chasing experience, and I had plenty of them. But the one thing it taught me is that there's a right time and place to sell, and that was not it. Most of the time it was annoying people rather than trying to convert them. So one of the big sales lessons I learned early was know the right time and place to sell.
That's powerful. And I'm going to share my own personal as well. And we are speaking about sales, even though we're using this analogy of Jehovah's Witness model of faith or denomination. So in my family, the way Jehovah's Witness approached my Greek side of the family was during a death. And it was a death of a very close, person everybody loved truly. And I remember that the Jehovah's Witness church showed up at the funeral. They showed up at the wake. They showed up at all these, these mourning and grieving type of events, but they didn't stop there. After that whole wave of people kind of, faded away of coming and mourning with our family, the Jehovah's Witness people, they kept coming and knocking on the door and bringing food, just sitting down and talking and listening. How are you? And really just being very human. And they outlasted and outpaced everyone else. Because of that, they earned themselves the right to then present what they were up to present their religion, present their faith, or I like to say in the business space, to present their sales conversation. They earned themselves the right to have a sales conversation with the prospective clients, which were my family. And they successfully won that sale because I remember the closing argument. I asked my nephews and stuff, my cousins, I was like, why did you become Jehovah's Witness? And they told me they were the only ones that cared.
It's a great point, actually. And actually, talking about how, from a religion side of things, but it's one of the actual core basics of selling now that I think a lot of small businesses get wrong. So, this is about the first 100K, right? And every business owner wants to achieve something themselves and to achieve a number, whether it's 100K, 500K, a million, whatever the figure is. But it takes maybe people time to understand it, but the best way you sell is by not focusing on you. The best way you sell is by focusing on the person that you're engaging with and the prospect that you're talking to. And that's to the point you just mentioned around Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not focusing on them. They're focused on how they can help and support and engage your family, make that family feel good, support them in their troubled times. And when, as you say, they earn the right. And in sales, you have to earn the right as well. You have to earn the right to be able to make your prospect feel, yeah, I'm going to talk to this person because I feel they can add value to me. I feel they're not just trying to serve themselves. They absolutely care about, what the end result is for this person. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of business owners make, unfortunately, is they focus on themselves and not on the person they're selling to. And that's what they have to change if they want to be incredibly successful.
I like that you presented it that way and you connected it with what I was saying with the story. And I think you're right. So many salespeople, they focus on the transaction rather than the relationship. Mm-hmm. And the relationship must come first, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it does. The relationship, you've got to, I always say to people, there are 5 key words of selling, as I call it. The first 2, there are only 2 reasons why people buy anything. I say to people, feel free to challenge me at James White Sales if you feel I'm wrong. Problem or want, either a problem or a want. It can be both. It can be both. It could be a problem and a want, but it needs to be a problem or want. The second word is understanding. Prospects feel, if you talk to someone and they feel you understand them, you've taken the time to really get to know, to your point, that the Jehovah's Witnesses were understanding your family and what they were thinking and what they were feeling and the emotional hurt they were going through, and really understand them. The third thing then is about belief. People need to have belief that you can make their world a better place. And the fourth one is they've got to trust you to make it happen. And if you get those 5 words or those 4 words in order, and you get them right, you'll win business time and time again on a regular basis. But the reality is you have to do each one. And the biggest mistake that, again, a lot of small businesses make and business owners make is they miss out the understanding bit. The understanding bit is the chunky bit in the middle that you really, really need to focus on.
Why do you think that is, and how can they correct that? So my listeners listening right now, and they're like, yeah, I think that's me, James. I just put my hand up. What do I do about it?
So the first thing is look yourself in the mirror and see why you're doing it. Okay, so the honest answer is look yourself in the mirror and see why are you doing it? Is it because you're trying to sell before you're ready the person's ready to buy? Is it because you doing something just to earn money and it's not your true vocation? Is it because you don't have the right skills? I don't know. There could be a number of reasons, but the first thing is that you've got to look yourself in the mirror and see why that is. But invariably, it's because most business owners that I speak to don't ask enough of the right type of questions. They don't probe enough, and they then don't make an assessment at the end of that to know whether they are right to go forward with that person or not. So I'll give you an example. You have a conversation with someone and you have a service that you offer, because ultimately we're not charities. None of us are charities. You have to earn. And you might charge $5,000, $10,000, $500, whatever, for the service you offer. Now, if you have a conversation with someone and you want to know whether they can afford that or whether they're going to pay that figure for your service, the reality is the only way you know that is by getting to understand what's going on in their world, by asking the right type of questions, by probing in an empathetic and sympathetic and emotionally engaging way that builds that relationship. And when you do that, you can either then start to say, yes, they're going to do that, or no, they're not. So I always say to prospects, there's a download I have on my website, around 40 questions to ask. Ask questions. Spend the first part of the time when you're engaging with a new prospect, not to try and sell to them, not trying to focus on the end game. You don't try and marry someone the first time you meet them. So don't try and, literally sell to someone on the first time you meet them. See them as a human being, get to know them about what they're about and what they're concerned with and what's going on in their world. Find out what's key for them and build upon that, or not, as the case may be. But most people try and sell too early. They try and sell too early. They try and go in and think, oh, it's not right, I'm going to move on, rather than building that relationship, accepting that it takes a little bit of time and being prepared to spin, multiple plates at the same time. So
let me ask you this, James, because I really heard that. I heard the 5 questions. I heard understanding is the big one that most entrepreneurs miss. And then I heard really take the time to ask questions, probing questions. That's how you get to understand your prospective client. How much time do you spend on that initial sales conversation, right? Because up till then, they're a lead, right? Someone likes something on Facebook or your social, they comment on it. That is a lead. That is a possible prospect. You reach out to them. You say, hey, why don't we jump on a call together? I want to hear about your life, or I think I could help with what you just shared, etc. You want to jump on, they click, they schedule a call. how long should that call be, and how many of those questions should you ask, and which are the right ones to ask?
So how long should the call be? Depends on the prospect. Ask them in the first instance. The first question I'll always do when I have a conversation, I've got half-hour booked for this session. Does that give you enough time to cover off the key things you want to get from this conversation? So, firstly, ask them those questions, ask them the time frame. Secondly, use that period of time to get to know why they're giving you the time in the first place. What's brought you to this conversation? Tell me why you were open to giving up 30 minutes, an hour of your time initially to spend on that. And what is it you want to gain from this? What is it that's going to help you? I want to make your world a better place, and I want to see people use my service or my products and feel happy. What is it you want to gain from this? And then asking those questions to get to know them and what's going on in their world. What are and ultimately go back to my element of problem or one. There's either something that's causing them a challenge or there's something they want to achieve. And our job as business people is to find that out. So asking the questions of, what are the priorities for you right now? What are the key things you're focusing on in this COVID world? How are you going to grow your business over the course of the next 6 to 12 months? And what actions are you taking? And what are the steps that are really key for you, right? So those what, how, tell me more, show me more, explain to me, those type of questions are key. I think if you're asking those and you get a sense of where someone's at the end of that, you should then be able to see, do what they offer, what they want to do fit with what you do, and do they see a sense of there's some sort of connection on that? And if there is, then it's about saying, look, I can't solve this right now, but it seems like there's a fit for us to work together or do something. Why don't we move this to the next stage? And that might involve a secondary meeting or an ongoing meeting. And it depends on the person and what they sell. And if they sell something for $10, right, they're not going to want to have too many of those conversations. But if they're selling a service for $500 and then $50 a month, then they've got to weigh out how long that takes. But invariably, you have to give before you expect to get. And you've got to give in a way that is either of your time, or you've got to put materials, content, information out there that enables people to understand you and who you are and where you're perfect for them, in order to shortcut that process. So the honest answer, it depends on the product, the value they sell. I'd be happy to share with anyone that comes on and says, I share a product for $1,000. This is what I do, and go through that process with them as part of the activity. But in my experience, you've got to still understand people, and people generally go through a thinking process with you before they get to a point of trying to make a decision on what you do and buy from you. Unless it's a very low-end product, they're going to go on that journey, and you've got to accept that they're going to go on that journey. And if you don't, chances are you may frighten them off.
Okay, got it. That's powerful. So Startup Nation, maybe you're a coach out there, and maybe you have experienced this situation where you finally get that prospect onto a sales call, right? A video chat, or, just a phone call. You give them 30 minutes of your time. The 30 minutes, you start asking them the probing questions. They tend to go off on tangents. They tell you their whole story behind everything. You try to bring the conversation back and keep moving the conversation forward. Before you know it, you're at 45 minutes. You're running out of time. You want to go for that close. You think you can help them. You're not sure they're there yet, but based on what you're hearing, you're like, I could definitely help this person. So now you kind of lean in and go for that, that push. And sometimes, just sometimes, it becomes almost more of a sales push rather than a sales conversation or invitation. And then you find yourself kind of like, you're at an hour, they're teeter-tottering, you're pushing in more, and you're not loving the way you're showing up. So James, I don't know if that situation I just spoke to exists in your world. I know it does exist though, and it's a very common situation. What should my listener do if they find themselves in that situation, or how do they avoid it altogether?
So the answer to the question is what is the goal that they're trying to get to in that conversation? So I go back to, if you've got especially in America, you guys have got massive highways, or they have 15 lanes. You would not attempt to run. If I said to you, go and run across a lane, in America, literally there's 12 lanes and literally non-stop, chances are you're going to get hit, right? Okay.
James, I could do it.
Okay, you can do it, but I definitely couldn't. Okay, so the chances are you're going to go through lane 1, and then you're going to have a look and check nothing coming. Then you're going to go to lane 4, then you're going to have another look, and then you're going to go to lane 8. So the reality is in sales, sales is about our process. So the question is, if I'm in that business, the first case I've got to do is work out where I want to get them to. And the first call is about getting to know them, seeing whether they're a good fit, being open and saying, look, I'm really sorry, but I've got another call or another meeting booked at this time, therefore I have to go. But I've really enjoyed the conversation we've had, Joseph. And look, I don't know about you, but I feel we've had a really good conversation and talked about where things are. And I think there could be some opportunities for us to do something here. What I'd like to suggest is we go and move to a demonstration, go and move to a next meeting next week at Friday at 4 p.m. How does that sound for you? Now, if you've enjoyed that conversation the same way as I have, and you felt that you've built a rapport with me, and I've been able to talk about how I can help you solve problems and wants you've got, you're going to want to carry that conversation on, because ultimately I'm making a difference in your world. If I'm not, you're going to want to say, well, I don't want to speak to this guy again because no, he's not helping me. There's nothing there. So one of the tips that you can encourage people to do is not leave a meeting without having a clearly defined action and date and time to do something next. Not, I'll speak to you next week, but I'll look to speak to you next week at 4. How does that sound? Or, have you got your diary there? Let's continue this conversation. And most people understand that second part of the conversation is then going to be about moving things forward. But again, it could well be that you might have 5 stages in your sales process. The first meeting might just get you from stage 1 to 2, but then the goal for the next meeting is to get them from stage 2 to 3. The reality is there's got to be a progress forward. If you're not moving forward for any stage, if you're staying at stage 2, then you then have to question whether you can carry on the time spending with that person. And there are some questions that you can ask in the right way, in an empathetic way, that can see if someone's right for them. And there are a few people that will waste time, but invariably, I think most business owners and people don't want to sit in a room and talk to people for no reason. They want someone to help them and support them and make their world a better place, and you want to do the same. And if there's not a fit, hey, that's okay. There's not a fit. But so it's being clear on the next steps, clear on what that step looks like, and be focused on agreeing to that point at the end of that meeting. If they won't give you that, I always say to people, if your prospect won't give you that date and time for a next conversation, then that meeting's not gone as well as you think.
Got it. That's very clear. And thank you for answering that. I think that was a powerful answer. I really like the highway metaphor that you used. How does someone who is, say, a coach or, they're closing that sales conversation, how many lanes, right, do they need to cross in that sales conversation? Or let me take a moment.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I know
right.
How many stages in the process?
How many stages in the process? Is it based on the cost of their service? For example, if I'm selling a $50 or a $297 product on that call, is that a one-call close? If I'm selling a $5,000 coaching package or 10 or 20, is that, well, that's a 2-call close or a 3-call close? Are you clear on my question? I
am indeed. And the answer is it depends a little bit on your brand and who you're talking to and where they are in the process. There will be some people that will tell you that absolutely, you're going to talk to me. This is my price. If you don't like it, don't have the conversation with me. Therefore, it will be a 1-call close for those guys. But those people aren't generally where most business owners are. Most business owners haven't got the brand exposure and awareness of maybe a major international coach. So what they've probably got to do is I believe, people going on that journey. The first call is, do I like this person? Can I get to know them? Do I think there's an opportunity there? The second call is, okay, so talk to me more about what it is you do and what impact you can have for me. What can you make difference in my world? And then the third element generally tends to be some sort of proposal, some sort of outline of what it is you do. Or it could well be that you might give them an initial introductory element that gets them started and become aware of you, and then have something at the end of it. So to give an example of how I will do it. This is an example of maybe how I do it. So I will put a lot of content. I produce videos, I produce resources. If you go to my website, there's 25 different PDFs and resources that anyone can have free of charge. I don't charge anyone for those. You can take those all day long. I then have a couple of areas where I will capture people's information. Someone wants to take I have a sales success test. Have you got everything right for sales? They'll give me that information. I'll offer a call with them for half hour. At the end of that call, they might say, "Yeah, I like this guy. I think it's could be a good fit." And then I might invite them onto one of my online courses. So I run a series of online courses where people can pay $45 for an online course for a period of 6 weeks along with a group of other people. And at the end of that session, they can then come into my academy or to my mentoring. So the point being is, I try and sort of engage with them, for you to get your wallet out to spend $500 versus $25, you're probably a bit more keen to spend 25 than you are 500. So whether it's called a product for prospects or something to get people through the door. If I was a coach, that's the sort of stuff I'd be looking to do. Give them something that you can use and scale that can enable them to get a sample of you and who you are and get them to spend more time with you as well. The other key thing is time. If they're spending time with you and they're building that relationship and that rapport, then the reality is most people then want to continue that on because they've built an affinity to that person. If you've not got some sort of product or service like that, although COVID has opened up opportunities for us all to be able to do that, then I think what you've probably got to accept is that there's probably 2 or 3 stages in that process for you to go through. And you've got to ask the right questions in stages 2. Probably stage 2 is where I would ask most of my questions around the money. The biggest issue is the money. Can they afford this, or is the money there to spend it? Why are they doing it now? The timing around it. The authority, where's the decision process going? So who is involved in the decision process? So the typical sort of BANT model, if you've heard of BANT, BANT's a model that's well used in sales. It's a model that is called budget, authority, need, and timing. And those questions and the way you ask them can make a massive difference, again, in being able to know if that person's right for you or not. So I would say at stage 3 for most coaches, 3 stages is probably about right.
Okay, that's pretty powerful. And Startup Nation, hopefully I spoke exactly right to your question. And that's what I aim to do on this show, is to really get into your head and ask the questions that you would want to ask my guest, right? So hopefully I've done that. So if you're a coach and you're selling a $5,000, as an example, coaching package, and you are getting people onto sales calls, so you're getting leads, but your close rate is lower than where you want it to be, what I'm hearing James say is maybe consider taking that one call close, trying to sell that $5,000 package on the first call, and turn that into 2 or 3 different calls because it's a larger priced service. James, am I getting that right?
Yeah, you are. Or if it's a $5,000 sale, maybe can you offer a $50 product initially, or $100 product initially that you can offer across a number of people, so that it's more scalable, that they'll then warm that person up, ready to then go to your $5,000 or your $500 offering. So again, like I was saying, I run a series of online courses. I will have 30, 40 people that will pay me $50 to be on that course on a Thursday night. I run them for an hour every Thursday evening. I have a glass of wine with people. We have fun. We have literally fun. We talk about sales, yeah? And they literally spend 6 weeks in my company. And at the end of it, I give them a guarantee. I say, if you don't enjoy this, I'll give you your money back. It's literally no issue whatsoever. And at the end of that, people will say, hey, I love this. I've built a sense of community. I'm meeting people. I've got to know people. Where do I go from here? Because they've warmed to engage with me. So for me, it's then easier to then be in a position to move them through to the next stage of what I offer. So it goes back to the element about being human again. People are human. People buy from humans. You want to make sure that people feel that they want an affinity to want to work with you and engage with you. And if they feel that you're doing it just to line your own pocket, then I'm going to say to you that I think people are going to get found out on that stuff, and they are being found out. I say that because there are people in the world that lead countries that are pretty selfish, but generally, not in every world of the world, but generally in business, I generally believe that, going back to what we talked about earlier on with faith and who they are, that the karma and the way you operate and your value system is important. And do you really just want to take money from someone and just put it in your own pocket and not care what you do, or do you really have a passion to make their world a better place? And if that's what you do and that's your duty, then share it, be open about that, and don't be unapologetic about what it's never the price that's the issue, it's the return and the impact it has on that person's life.
Startup Nation, is that you? Did James just describe you? Are you that good, wholesome, wonderful, big-hearted person that really just wants to impact people in their lives and help them, just have that better life, right? And get out of all that suffering that you see all around you? If that's you, replay this interview. James has dropped some really powerful tips and strategies that you can implement into your sales conversations. I know I'm walking away with 1 or 2 myself. James, what do you got?
It's an interesting point. There was a lady I spoke to who was funny enough, he's actually a coach, and a lot of people that are supposedly give advice or sometimes they're afraid of going into a group where they can be safe and honest, right? It's that moment where everyone wants to be completely, but where are my failings? Where did I go wrong? And one of the things when I built, my first business that I had, which, I got to nearly £1 million of recurring revenue. I raised nearly $750,000 in funding for it. And I got, a lot of mistakes wrong. And when I was when I was doing that job, it's a lonely business being a business owner. Yeah, it's a lonely place. It's a place where you literally sometimes feel like you don't want to go home and talk to the partner because you're worried about upsetting them or worrying them or causing them. So where do you go for that stuff, right? And the biggest challenge for business owners is that they've got to sometimes work out where they're at and where they're going and who's going to hold them accountable and I had a lady that said to me, I feel at home with what I'm doing with you. And I said, that's the best words people can ever give me, because if they feel at home, it means that so my question to your listeners is, what are they doing to make their customers and prospects feel so comfortable and so at home and so in tune with what they're doing that they become a tribe and they become disciples, as I call it. Talking about, disciples are people that go out and tell and preach and share, not preach, but tell people, hey, are you aware of this guy and and what he's doing? Because do you know what? He's so great. He's not about himself. He's focused. Or they're really there to help people, and that's what I'm passionate about building. I'm building disciples and tribe of people who will go out and say, he's keen to help you get those results. And I say to people all the time, I smile inside when my clients and people on my academy get results and win business. I can't tell you how good it makes me feel when they take my advice, get a result, and see money coming into their bank account. It's like the best. It is. It's why I do what I do.
That's powerful. And I relate a little bit in the spiritual coaching that I do when I give advice, a lot in relationship, marriage, etc. And say, for example, a guy takes my advice, a husband takes my advice and goes and has that conversation with his wife that he's been avoiding, that she's been waiting for. He has the conversation. He's scared, completely to do it, but I give him the accountability. He goes, he does it. Boom, he gets this breakthrough in intimacy and just his relationship goes to this next level he didn't even know existed. He comes back to me. He's like, guess what? It worked. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Now this has happened and this has happened and this has happened. And what a joy that is. Right? Because you're right there with them. And you're like, as a coach, sometimes, I don't know if you have this, but sometimes you're thinking to yourself, I really hope that advice works, right? Because he's taking the risk. And then it does. And you get to really just enjoy being involved in people's lives. I think that's what we do.
You're totally right. And you do, I think the reason you generally tend to know what works is because what works more so than that is because I've made the mistakes where it didn't work. Those are the times when I know, the best advice I say, the best mentors to work for are not those that are uber successful. I always say to people, if you're becoming a coach and you can't show up what you've done wrong, then I guarantee you that you're not true to your word. I tell my clients generally, these are the mistakes I've made. These are the things not to do. These are the areas where I got badly wrong that I encourage you now to avoid this because of this pain that it causes you. And by the way, I made that mistake. I cocked up. I got it wrong. And the scars are there, but I've come through it, and you can make them. Feel free to make them, but ultimately, there's no point because it's going to hurt, right? And you don't want anyone. And the benefit of mentors and coaches is you save time and you give people expertise and knowledge that they would have had to otherwise find themselves. And that's what I guess we do. And like I say, it's a great feeling when you do. It's why I do what I do. I don't do it for. I've got very wealthy friends who you ask people what it is that they do, and you can drive flash cars, you can put watches on, you can put posh trainers on your feet and whatever else. But ultimately, when your time comes, you've got nothing to take with you. We're not Egyptians in them anymore with the pyramids and putting all of our stuff in the coffin with you. So would I rather go in the ground knowing I've made an impact on people's lives, or would I rather go in the ground knowing that I've got 3 Porsches and 6 Ferraris? There's no choice.
Powerful stuff. Okay, so we are speaking with James White. He is the sales expert trainer. You can find him at JamesWhite.business. That's JamesWhite.business. James, before we go into my favorite part of the show, share with us very quickly what are your top 3 tips or strategies. I know you dripped a lot in there, but summarize it for us. Startup Nation, grab your pen and paper, write these down. Top 3 sales tips and strategies Startup Nation can implement this week. What you got?
Firstly, own your space, own your position, be something to someone, not everything to everyone. So in other words, know where you're a specialist for and become a specialist in your area. And if you're not sure if people worry about it, but trust me, own your space. Go and own your space. Whether you become the space, you're the person owning the space for the first 100K, right? You're the go-to person for it. Own your space. The second thing is be valuable and create content that shares what you do and your passion for why you do it with the world. And it is a long journey, but you've got to accept that unless you're out there and being visible and sharing that, you're never going to grow and scale to what you want to do. So get up, be focused on problems and the wants that you solve for your target market, and share those in a video, blog, whatever format, and be relentless on doing that. And the third element that I would say is really important is be clear of your own value and be able to confident about it. Prospects generally, I think, are like animals, and they will react to your, if you're being tentative, and if you go up to a dog and you're not sure about the dog and you're tentative, the dog will react, and prospects are the same way. So build that confidence by repetition and training your mind. A good little tip for people: get their price. So if their price is $500, firstly add $250 onto it, and then literally repeat that 100 times a day. So literally just, if my rate is 750, my rate is 750, my rate is 750, my rate is 750, my rate is 750. When I do workshops with people, I literally get people wanting to throw something at me because I keep saying to them, what's your rate? And at the end of the day, they started at the workshop on $500 as a rate. At the end of it, their rate is then 750, and their confidence when they say those words just means that the prospect thinks, oh, right, this person's really confident in what they're saying. So know your value and be confident about saying it. And that sort of stuff can be done through simple repetition so that it just flows off your tongue. And your pricing and the way you announce and talk about pricing is very much like when you drive a car. When you pass the test, you learn to drive. And the same way as your pricing. Know your pricing, repeat it, and just be very confident and comfortable about it. And then people will start to be comfortable and respond to you in that way.
James, that third one right there, know your pricing and be confident in when you say it. What an overlooked, simple strategy. So overlooked. And I love that. And Startup Nation, I could speak firsthand to that. Man, when I started my spiritual coaching business and I'm increasing my rate, really on a weekly basis, I just keep, kind of escalating this rate. I had to get comfortable every week with the next level of how I was going to say that rate. So like James said, my rate is 750. Next week, my rate is 1,000. Next week, my rate is 1,500. Next week, my rate is, 2,000. Before I know, my rate is 5,000, right? But if I was saying that weeks ago, I'd be like shaking in my boots. I hope they say yes. I don't know if they're going to say that, right? That timidness that a dog can sense and will react to in a negative way. So will your client. So saying my rate is blank over and over and over and over again throughout the day. What a powerful strategy. I just really back James up on that and encourage you to do that. Because I know most of you, when it comes to saying what your rate is at the end of that sales conversation, y'all get flustered.
Another thing to do as well is, so this is, we're British here, right? We've got the pound note rather than the dollar. But the other thing I say to people is, get something, whether it's a family photo, whether it's something that you associate with good things. Photos are great, especially of kids or whatever else. And when you're saying what your prices are, or when you're going into a meeting where you're going to talk about pricing, hold the photo or look at the photo and look at that. So the NLP guys will tell you that you get into a state as a result of those aspects. And it really does work. I have a little a chip that I use that I look at when I'm going through a conversation around pricing. I'll generally, it's a little prop for me that I will use even when I'm in this position where I feel, no, this is my good moment. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it for my family and to make the world a better place and to help people. So get those props in place as well as the repetition. They will help you feel that bit stronger as a result of what you do. And they work. And ultimately, I like you, your rates, if I look back at when I started, it's different to what it is now, but that's fine because you go through that journey, right?
There you go. All right, we're speaking with James White. You can find him at JamesWhite.business. James, welcome to my favorite part of the show. Welcome to the hustle round. I'm going to ask you 10 quick fire questions. You'll have about 3 seconds to answer each. Don't overthink it. It's just for fun. Are you ready, sir?
Go.
What's your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur or a sales expert?
Making a difference in people's lives.
What's your least favorite thing?
Administration.
Admin. What are you most afraid of?
Monkeys.
Monkey. Awesome. James, I think as humans, we all are struggling with something at any given moment of our lives. What are you currently struggling with, either professionally or personally?
My weight.
Your weight. Got it. Thank you for that transparency. What did you spend way too much time doing your first year in business?
Not planning.
Not planning. What secret fear do you have about people?
Whether they truly love me or not.
Clear. What do you wish you had learned sooner in business?
Be something to someone, not everything to everyone.
What's a new habit you want to form?
Getting tasks done earlier on in the day.
And what's a bad habit you want to break?
Red wine.
What was that?
Red wine.
Red wine. Got it.
No, it's not a bad. It's not a bad habit. I guess it's no. I probably, like a lot of people, don't eat the greens enough. I don't do the tough stuff first, and I need to continue to do the tough stuff. The stuff that's going to be important but not urgent stuff first.
Got it. Pick three words to describe who you are now.
Caring, supportive, engaging.
Pick three words to describe who you were your first year in business.
Keen, naive, enthusiastic.
Clear. And last question, James, if you could come back to life after you died, look your family and friends in the eye, and give them only one piece of advice about everything, life, eternity, all of it, what would you say to them?
Don't be worried. Go and do it.
Don't be worried. Go and do it. Any final wisdom? What's the one thing you want my listener to know about making their first 100K this year?
They can make it happen. It's in their control. They have a choice: eat or be eaten, and it's in their control to make it happen.
Okay, Startup Nation, go check out James White. James, what's the best way for my listener to get in touch with you? And I think you're offering them something free. What do you have for them?
Look, get in touch. Go to my website, www.JamesWhite.business, or search for me socially, James White Sales. Yeah, very happy to offer 3 people a consultation for an hour. Just get on. Let's get a booked in. Talk about your business, where you're at. If you're struggling with selling, struggling with getting leads through the door or converting the leads, then if I can make a difference in your world and help you get those results, I'll help you build the picture to get better results, on a consistent basis, then I'd love to do that. That's what I'm here for. So, and have a look at my content, but also reach out. Don't be afraid. That'll be the test. How many people will reach out? Most people don't, because they're afraid of, well, he doesn't really mean it, but trust me, I do.
Or they're afraid, oh, I missed the deadline. He's already got filled up with his 3 people. You never know. There might have been 1,000 people who had that same thought and didn't click.
Correct.
Right? Be one of those people, Startup Nation. James, thanks for being on your first 100K. I wish you God's love, peace, and joy in your life, my friend.
Thank you. Same to you as well. Have a great evening.
Startup Nation, you cannot show up authentically in your business without building faith in your business. If you want to have that conversation on the faith side of things, go check out my other podcast called Broken Catholic. On that show, I interview all different guests about why the world isn't working right now. Plus, I tackle unspeakable topics that you may secretly struggle with, but won't admit. We got to get your faith right to get your business right. Go to brokencatholic.com. I'm Joseph Warren, and you were made for greatness. So stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you right back here next week.